welcome back. Happy Friday, yay! Happy Friday, everyone. Today we are going to pick up where we left off with in our story of Ralph S. Mouse, and I know many of you are hurrying to catch up because we're getting really close to the end of our story here. Believe it or not, we only have the last 2 chapters left to go, and then it's time for us to pick our next story again. We left off with chapter 8 with a very, very upset class this time. Not only is Ralph upset about his motorcycle, but if you remember, the class is all upset about what's been going on in the newspaper and that the story didn't seem to get passed along quite right just yet. But they have a plan, but first, of course, Mr. Costa needs to investigate and find out if there are really more mice in the school than just Ralph. And I'm not sure anyone knows the answer to that, including Ralph. But hopefully Ralph will be safe. No electronic traps or poisons, no cats or anything like that. We had enough with cats in the last story. So let's find out. Chapter 8 is titled Ralph Speaks. And we were left wondering, what is he going to say and who is he going to say it to? So let's try to find that out today. Chapter 8, Ralph Speaks. Ralph was tired of sulking about, hiding in mittens and boots, scrounging glue-flavored seeds from 4th grade mosaics, and eating sugar, which he had overheard children say rotted their teeth. He was nervous about the mouse hunt that was about to begin at Sneed Elementary School, all because he had innocently wanted to leave the inn to save an old man's job. Ralph felt that he was being blamed for everything that went wrong, and that trying to be good was not worthwhile. Ralph left Melissa's boot because he did not want Ryan to find him. He slipped behind a row of textbooks on health in a bookcase under the window and sat there, pondering large problems, such as the unfairness of life and the shortage of liberty and justice for well-meaning mice. Ralph longed to return to the inn, but he knew that even if he found a way to get there, he could never face the jeering little relatives without his motorcycle. First, they would demand to know what happened to his motorcycle. Then they would tell him that it served him right that it was broken because he had been so selfish. But I've got to go someplace, Ralph decided. Perhaps he could move into a restaurant in Cucaracha. Now that the snow was melting, there was no longer any danger of being buried outside. However, his feet might freeze or he might drown in the dirty slush. He was too angry with Ryan to ask for help. What Ralph needed was transportation, other, of course, than his feet. He just needs his motorcycle back. Ralph tried to make plans. If he could somehow get a hold of the pieces of the motorcycle, and if he could manage to nip off a strand of Miss Kay's strong hair, perhaps he could tie the motorcycle back together again. It's like a Legos project for him. While Ralph sat brooding behind the books, he was not forgotten by Room 5, who found the problems of a mouse much more interesting than making sentences out of spelling words. Don't listen, my friends. Hands were raised and questions asked. But, Miss Kay, don't you think we should try to find Ralph? Somebody might step on him. Miss Kay, how are they going to investigate the school for mice? Miss Kay, will they poison Ralph? Miss Kay laid down her chalk and gave up trying to teach. Miss Kay, said Ryan, I'm sure Ralph is the only mouse here. He could have done all those things by himself. Ryan's remark gave the class hope for Ralph. I know what we could do, said Melissa. We could get him to walk across a stamp pad so that he could leave purple footprints. That way we could see if he went to the cafeteria and the library and all those other places. Ralph groaned. Purple feet, thought Melissa and her bright ideas. The class was quick to point out that the ink would soon wear off and that Ralph would have to keep running back to the stamp pad, which no longer would do. Anyway, they will have to find him first. Well, class, said Miss Kay, I can see that we're not going to get any work done until we find out more about the superintendent's investigation. If you will promise to work quietly on your spelling sentences, I will go ask Mr. Tanner what he plans to do. The class promised. Of course, they would do work quietly. Didn't they always work quietly when the teacher left the room? Something tells me they might not. Ralph climbed to the top of a book to watch. As soon as Miss Kay left, Melissa, taking the precaution of leaving the door open, posted herself as lookout. When the teacher was safely out of sight, everyone began to whisper at once. Wads of paper flew back and forth. Ryan pulled the broken motorcycle out of his pocket and said to Brad, "See what you did?" By standing on his hind legs on the top of the book, Ralph was able to see the remains of his motorcycle. More than Miss K's hair was going to be needed to repair that wreck. His motorcycle was broken in 2 pieces. The muffler dangled, the spring forks were bent, the handlebars twisted. Ralph felt sick looking at it. Sick and angry. Brad scowled. "Why don't you buy him another? You're a rich kid." "Why should he?" thought Ralph. "Brad was the one who broke it." "I'm not a rich kid." Ryan was astonished by Brad's remark. "Then how come you live in a hotel?" demanded Brad. "Because my mother works there," said Ryan. "I eat in the kitchen with the maids and the waitress." Oh, obviously Brad had not known this. "Where's your dad?" "I don't know." Ryan was sensitive about this subject. "Someplace, I guess." "Psst," hissed Melissa, and scooted back to her seat. Quiet as mice, thought Ralph, as heads bent back over their spelling words. Miss K was smiling as she walked to the front of the room. The class looked up, waiting for her answer. "Mr. Crossman, the superintendent, telephoned Mr. Tanner this morning to ask about the mice at Sneed," she told her class. "Mr. Tanner said that he didn't think there was much to worry about and that the reporter got carried away. Mr. Crossman said that was good because since people voted for Proposition 13 and taxes had been cut, the school district couldn't afford an exterminator. Mr. Costa set mousetraps overnight to see what happened. Mr. Crossman said that there was enough money in the budget for 5 mousetraps." Traps, thought Ralph. What a joke. "What, was that the investigation?" someone asked. "One phone call?" Miss K laughed. "That was the investigation." Even though the class was concerned for Ralph's safety, everyone felt left down. They had expected some kind of excitement, a team of men in white uniforms perhaps, and the school closed for several days. "If Mr. Costa doesn't catch any mice, do we get to write our letters to the Cucaracha Voice newspaper?" asked Gloria. "That's right," agreed Miss K. "But what if Mr. Costa catches Ralph?" someone asked. Others voiced the same worry. Ralph was insulted. Hadn't he proved his intelligence by finding a new way to run a maze? He knew all about traps. As soon as he was old enough to leave the nest, his mother had taken him to see a baited trap in the old hotel kitchen and explained its evils one by one. "We'll just have to take that chance," said Miss K. "Now, please settle down and finish those spelling sentences." Spelling sentences were all Room 5 did manage that morning. At lunchtime, some of the girls began to call, "Ralphie! Where are you, Ralphie?" as they gathered up their lunchboxes. Ralphie? Ralph would never answer to such a silly name. He noticed Brad was last to leave, as if he were not eager to join the others for lunch. Suddenly, Ralph's anger boiled over. He did not care if Brad looked lonely. He did not care if Brad found out that he could talk. He was going to take matters into his own paws and tell that boy a thing or two. Ralph leaped lightly from the top of the book, dashed across the floor, and sprang up onto Brad's jeans. Desperately, he clung by his toenails as Brad walked out of the room and slowly down the hall. Miss K locked the door of her room and caught up with Brad. He put her arm around his shoulders and said, "Is there something I can do to help? Is there something I can do to help you, sir?" Sorry, he's playing with the back of my shirt, entertaining himself instead of listening to the story. "I'm okay," said Brad. "If I can do anything, please let me know." Miss K released Brad and went on down the hall. Neither had noticed the mouse clinging to Brad's jeans. Ralph ran up Brad's leg and onto the front of his t-shirt. Finally, Brad must have felt Ralph's toenails, for he looked down. You meanie," said Ralph. "You broke my motorcycle, my only way of getting out of this place. I'm too little to wade through slush, and anyway, walking isn't as much fun as riding a motorcycle, especially through puddles." Brad stared at Ralph. As one might imagine, if you had a mouse crawl up your shirt and talk to you. You can talk," he said, as if he couldn't even believe it. "Of course I can talk," said Ralph. "Not many people can understand me, but I can talk." "How come I can understand you?" asked Brad. "You're the type. You're lonesome and you're interested in cars and motorcycles. That's the sort of person who understands me." Brad seemed to be thinking this answer over as Ralph continued. How come you're lonesome? You're not a new boy to the school like Ryan. None of your business, said Brad. Then, realizing he had admitted more than he intended, he contradicted himself. I'm not lonesome anyway. Aw, come on, coaxed Ralph, who by now was genuinely curious. You can tell me. Brad was stubbornly silent. I'm just a little mouse, you know, Ralph reminded him. Well, I live with my father and Arfie, my dog. My folks got divorced and my mom doesn't live with us anymore, and it's just a little lonesome without her right now, confessed Brad. Oh, that's too bad. Ralph was sympathetic. His own mother had nagged him, but he missed her right now. Ryan's lonesome too because he's new here, Ralph told Brad. You two should get together. Suddenly, Brad laughed, and for the first time, Ralph had ever heard him laugh. I don't believe this, he said. A mouse is telling me what to do. Ralph's feelings were hurt. Don't believe it then, he said, remembering his motorcycle. Aw, don't be mad. Brad was sorry he had hurt Ralph's feelings. Let's be friends. Why should we? Asked Ralph in his coldest squeak. You wanted to make the maze too hard. You pushed my friend and broke my motorcycle. Why should we be friends? Because, began Brad, and then he stopped. Look, I didn't know that Ryan had a motorcycle in his pocket, or you either. I thought that he was rich. Oh, never mind what I thought. Was that really your motorcycle? Yes, it was. Ralph spoke in his crossest voice. A boy gave it to me. Wow, breathed Brad. A mouse with a motorcycle. Can you ride it? Not when it's broken, said Ralph. Now put me down and go eat your lunch. I need a little rest. Mice are supposed to be nocturnal, you know, and I need my sleep in the daytime. Miss Kay locked the door, Brad reminded him, and you shouldn't be running around the halls where you could get stepped on. No problem. I can go under the door, said Ralph. Will you talk to me again? Asked Brad, as he used his hands not in the sling to set Ralph on the floor. Maybe, maybe not, answered Ralph. It all depends. With that non-committal reply, he flattened himself and slipped under the door into the empty classroom. Inside, he entered what had become his home away from home, Melissa's boot. You're inspecting it too? Trying to imagine those boots, so he is. He felt that he had only dozed off when Ryan's hand closed around him. Gotcha, said Ryan. Put me down, snarled Ralph, needing his rest. Brad was right, said Ryan. I didn't think that you would come back, but he said he found you and that you talked to him. The class began to return and crowd around Ryan. You found him, they said. Miss Kay, Ralph is safe. Where will we keep him? We can't let him get caught in a trap. Trap, snapped Ralph. Do you think I'm not smart anymore? Only Ryan and Brad understood him, though. Let's put him in the fishbowl for the time being, said Miss Kay. Oh, no, groaned Ralph. Not again. I think Ralph likes more privacy, said Ryan. There's that old mitten that's been lying around, said Melissa. He could have that to sleep in. In spite of Ralph's struggles, he found himself once again in the fishbowl, but this time with an old mitten at least. Furious with Ryan for not managing to save him from this indignity, he crawled into the thumb where he thought mean thoughts about everyone in room 5. Just before the last bell rang, Ryan set a bottle cap full of water in the fishbowl, along with the corner of a granola bar Miss Kay had given to him. Now take it easy, he whispered. You stay where you're safe tonight, and tomorrow we'll let you out of here. I promise. Ralph refused to come out of the mitten thumb to answer. Later, when Miss DaCosta came in to sweep, he listened to the radio sing a mournful song about a lonely truck driver in jail who had longed for his 18-wheel rig in the open highway. And all I wanted was 2 wheels, thought sad and lonely Ralph. And that brings us to chapter 9, which, believe it or not, is the end of our story. Now, Ollie, if I may, sir, if I can share the screen with you here. I'll try to climb around him again. He likes to be right up front, doesn't he? If you like your screen time, you want it to be all about you? Well, I'll take just a moment of his time then. Friends, I wanted to just remind you to keep up the great work in our Google Classroom. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week will be a chance for you to take some time to catch up, to take it easy with your families, and to have some fun home adventures together. And then we'll be back at it again on Thursday and Friday this week. So keep looking for updates coming up later on next week. For now, have a wonderful weekend. Have a great restful few days for your April vacation, and I will see you all very soon. Keep up the great work, everyone. Bye, guys.